Good afternoon and welcome to the Presidential Community News from the Hill. I'm your host, Erica Fox, and it's March, and it's time to once again talk with our 11th president of Alabama A&M University, Dr. Andrew Hugine Jr. Good afternoon, and how are you?
Good afternoon, Ms. Fox. I'm doing well. I'm certainly happy that we are now in the spring time of the year, and looking forward to a wonderful time in terms of graduation and other activities coming up on the campus. I would, though, before we begin the segment today, ask that we do a moment of silence in memory of two employees, former employees of the university, Ms. Alexander and, of course, Ms. Elizabeth Sloan Ragland, who spent many, many years here at Alabama A&M University in this same location. So if we would just, for a minute, pause for a moment of silence. Thank you, and we thank both of them for their services.
Most definitely. Thank you very much for your tribute and your words there. And we're coming off of, on a lighter note, off of spring break, and hopefully you were able to have some rest as you were able to go home. You and Mrs. Hugine went home and spend time with the grandkids to keep you
always
excited
delightful to do that. We were pleased to see them and pleased to interact with them, and they're growing each day. Amir has a birthday coming up in May, and Nyla has one coming in June, so we'll have them at 4 and 1. So they're growing by leaps and bounds. We're enjoying them better and better each day.
That's wonderful. Rest time to get you geared up for actually trying to recover also from a trip you had to Washington, D.C., and I believe that was the HBCU big story with President Donald Trump. What was that experience like for you?
It was a opportunity for all of our HBCU institutions, and I think with few exceptions, they were all represented. We were given the opportunity to meet with the President of the United States of America. It was important during this transition that we took advantage of that opportunity so that we could advocate for our institutions. Unfortunately, in this nation, a lot of people who are not familiar with HBCUs, the tremendous contributions that we have made and continue to make. And so the total genesis of that meeting, the nucleus of that meeting, was to have the opportunity to meet with the president, but also with the vice president and key members of the legislature, Representative Walker of North Carolina and Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina were the co-chairs of the FlyIn, which was called the HBCU FlyIn. And so it was a wonderful time to engage. This was an initiative that was spearheaded initially by our advocate group, being the Thurgood Marshall Group, and then of that later joined by UNCF as well as NAFIO. But some of the information that was available and information that we shared, I'd like to again to share it with our audience.
Please do.
And the HBCUs are responsible for 22% of all of the baccalaureate degrees that are granted to African Americans. That is tremendous given the fact that we represent a very small segment of the higher education population. To have that degree productivity is very outstanding. 40% of the African Americans who are in the U.S. Congress receive their degrees from HBCUs. 12.5% of the CEOs of major corporations that are African Americans receive their degrees from HBCUs. 40% of the engineers in this nation that are African Americans receive their degrees from HBCUs. 50% of the professors at the non-HBCU institutions. I found that one rather interesting. 50% of the African American faculty that are at non-HBCU institutions receive their degrees from HBCUs. And 80% of the individuals who are judges in this nation that are African Americans receive their degrees from HBCUs. So we continue to provide the intellectual capital, I like to refer to it as, that moves this nation forward. We have some specific asks that we presented at that time. We, of course, ask for the continued funding and increase to our basic financial aid programs. That is our Pell Grant program. That Pell Grant would be increased. We ask for the $375 million in strengthening HBCUs. That's our Title III program. That's an increase of $130 million over where we are currently. We ask for $85 million in appropriations in strengthening HBCUs beyond the mandatory appropriations that are already in place. We ask for $125 million in annual discretionary funding for the HBGI, that is the graduate component of the Title III program. For many years, we have not funded the endowment challenge, so we ask for $10 million in endowment challenge. One of the things that we must do as institutions, particularly HBCUs, we have to increase our endowments, because endowments make the difference. It allows you to provide scholarship opportunities for your students, but it also allows you to endow faculty chairs so that you can recruit and retain outstanding researchers and faculty.
Now that's separate from council challenge, correct?
That's totally
separate.
different. This is a federal effort that was funded under the Title III umbrella, but it has not been funded for a number of years. We also asked for an increase in the HBCU capital financing program. That's the program that we were fortunate to leverage $96 million on this campus, and we're asking that be increased to $400 million in annual appropriations so that we can address the infrastructure needs on our campuses. We ask that the Pell Grant be increased from $5,815 to $5,935. We also ask that work study be increased, going from $1.1 billion and currently is representing $110 million increase over where we are. In addition to that, we ask for parity relative to the matching dollar amounts for 1890 and 1862 institutions. The language for 1862 mandates that states match whatever is given from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to support the land grant mission, that the states match it. Unfortunately, in the language for the 1890, the states are encouraged. So one of the problems that we continue to have is that we don't get our matching. We don't even get one-to-one. Many of the 1862s are sometimes matched as much as 1-to-6 and 1-to-7. We're having difficulties even getting a one-to-one matching. And so we're asking that that be addressed. And then we ask that, there's been a lot of discussion about an infrastructure bill. So we said if there is an infrastructure bill, and I think it's something to the tune of $1 trillion is what I've heard, we're asking that $25 billion of that $1 trillion be set aside for HBCUs. That would do a tremendous job in helping us to retrofit our campuses, because we do need infrastructure dollars. So those were the asks that we gave when we were in Washington, D.C. We presented that to the FlyIn coordinators, and we are optimistic that there will be some movement. The other request was to move the HBCU White House initiative from the Department of Education. It is entitled HBCU White House Initiative, and therefore it needs to be in the White House. So that piece was done. They did move it from the Department of Education. It is now housed in the executive branch of government. I'm certain at this point they are looking for a director that would be responsible for the initiatives there. We also ask that there be an aspirational goal of 10% of dollars that are expended by federal agencies, that those dollars are contracted with HBCUs. We realize that the law says you cannot mandate that, but we're asking that as an aspirational goal, just simply let's strive to increase the amount of support that HBCUs are able to get through contracting. We are strategically positioned here at Alabama A&M University to take advantage of that. We have the AAMU RISE, which is the entity that is responsible for contracting. So we're ready to go as soon as the commitments are made to do that. So we'll be monitoring very carefully in the future just to see what happens. We understand that there are a lot of competing needs in the government and for government dollars, but our position is that when you invest in an HBCU, your investment really pays off. The statistics I shared with you earlier about the numbers that we continue to have, it tells you that it's an investment that is worthy, that this nation needs to really consider going forward. I may have mentioned this before as we talked about the engineers. We saw some interesting information that was presented at our last board meeting as relates to STEM enrollment in the state of Alabama. When you consider all of the institutions in Alabama, that is University of Alabama in Huntsville, University of Alabama in Birmingham, Auburn University, Troy University, all the universities, when you look at the STEM enrollment, Alabama A&M University has the highest STEM enrollment among minorities of any of the institutions in the state of Alabama.
Out of all of them.
Out of all of them. And we have the highest number of graduates. Again, we're looking at minorities, HBCUs, African Americans. And that, when you think about an institution with an enrollment of right around 6,000 compared to institutions with 24,000, but yet we are able to enroll large numbers of students in the STEM disciplines and graduate large numbers of African American students in the STEM disciplines. It says something about this institution, something we really, really should be proud of. And it's also a message, I think, to young people who are considering STEM careers that are African Americans. You need to look critically at Alabama Agricultural and Mechanical University, because our track record is clear. It's quite clear. And so we do, I always have to put a plug to encourage students to come to university because it's going to be worth their while. And so we're just excited about that opportunity.
I don't think you can ever promote yourself enough. You always have to get that out there. I am curious about when you talk about those numbers. First, I love how the percentages kept rising as you were talking about all the different disciplines that we are producing and HBCUs are producing. And when you say we were asking, now are you specifically talking about you and maybe cabinet members that went with you to Washington, to the White House, or are you speaking of we, the presidents at the other universities, were asking for these dollars? We collectively, as presidents of the universities, were asking for these dollars. We were given basically we agreed on what the ask would be, and so some of us were given the opportunity to actually convey what was being requested. But this is a request on the part of all of the HBCUs, so it's not for an individual institution. Collectively, this is what we were asking. So, for example, if you said we're asking for $90 million, is it $90 billion to go to each HBCU, or would we have to split it all up? We'd have to split it. We'd have to split it. Yeah. But consider where we are now. You know, if you're looking at the HBCU Capital Access Program, we were fortunate. Alabama A&M University, I don't think people understand that you get a commitment of $96 million. That's almost a half or so of what they had available to come to one institution. You know, many people, many institutions are envious that we were able to do that. But again, it talks about the confidence which the U.S. Department of Education had in this university, and the leadership and the management team at the university, that they're willing to take that chance. But we want the numbers to increase so that more dollars would be available
so that we can, we can do that. Our preference, though, always is if we could get the $25 billion infrastructure, that would be the way to go. Yes, the infrastructure dollars through HBCU Capital Access, those dollars are good. But there's one caveat with those dollars. They have to be repaid. It is a loan. It is not a grant. So we have to repay them. If we get the $25 billion in infrastructure dollars, they don't have to be repaid. And so we definitely would prefer having that $25 billion as a part of the $1 trillion infrastructure package, so that we won't have to repay those dollars.
Exactly.
When you constantly have loans and other requirements that must be paid by the university, it puts tremendous pressure on your tuition and your fees, because you have to retire the debt in some way.
Right.
And you do not want, when you have a clientele where 90% of the students are challenged already financially because they are receiving some type of aid, you don't want to continue having to increase and find a way to retire these dollars. We want the dollars invested so we won't have to repay them, and that helps us to moderate the growth in tuition and fee rates.
Most definitely. This is Presidential Community News from the Hill, and I'm talking with Dr. Andrew Hugine Jr., the 11th president of Alabama A&M University. And you talked about the Endowed Challenge, which of course helps with scholarships, and coming up will be the First Ladies Scholarship Luncheon. Tell us when that's going to take place.
The First Ladies Scholarship Luncheon is scheduled for the 1st of April. And we are excited about that. We commend her as well as the committee. They do a great job every year. And the intent of this is to provide scholarships. And fortunately, last year they awarded the first group of scholarships. I think there were scholarships to a person from each of the college, and I think a graduate student as well. And the same will be true again this year. That scholarship is endowed. I think the amount is probably $150,000 of endowment. And the advantage of an endowment is that it, quote, pays for itself. Once you endow a scholarship, then the interest that you generate from that scholarship, the revenue from the principal, allows you to provide that scholarship, but the corpus, the principal, is never touched. So that scholarship, those dollars will be there forever, and they'll be able to give scholarships over and over again. But we also encourage individuals to endow scholarships. You can do that for $25,000. So you endow a scholarship here at Alabama A&M University for $25,000. That scholarship will continue to be awarded on and on long after we're gone. It's still there. So endowments are the way to go. Endowments are the way to go. That is the piece that separates the good from the great universities, those that have the tremendous endowment. So we do encourage everyone to support that initiative on the 1st of April, and that'll be an exciting day. April 1st is also a busy day because that's the day that we kick off our one of our service activities in conjunction with the city. And so we'll come out that morning. I'll give some greetings early Saturday morning. I'll give some greetings, etc. Of course, I've said to them I can't spend the entire day because I of course have to be present at the First Ladies Scholarship Luncheon. But we certainly want to commend Ms. Clark and those who are responsible for the service component. Again, our motto here at the university is service is sovereignty. And I'm happy to see now that we have some formalized, organized manners in which we are proceeding to provide that service. And I say that because, fraternities, other Greek letter organizations, clubs, etc., they do service. So it's not that we have not done service, but it's not on the scale that we propose to do this on the 1st. And so we look forward to that being another activity on April the 1st.
It's definitely, my voice is, I'm a little touched. That is awesome. And another way people can give back, and there's so many avenues of United Way, and Alabama A&M is a big proponent and supporter of United Way. The campaign is coming around once again, so talk a little bit about that.
Yes, we are going to the final what they call the report luncheon, and so we will at that point be there with other agencies that have contributed, and they'll announce what the totals are for the year and see where we rank in terms of our giving. I'm very, very pleased that we did a wonderful job. This is our second year since I've been here that we've participated in the United Way effort. The first year, Dr. Barbara Jones was the campus coordinator, and this year Dr. Lois Price was the campus coordinator. Did a wonderful job, and so we will go to the report luncheon and see what happens. And then we'll, of course, kick off and begin next year's effort as well. And we encourage everyone to give. You know, we have to, as individuals, be concerned about our fellow brothers and sisters. When you hear some of the touching stories that they shared with us as we met for weekly reports and updates, when you hear them say, here is a family where they are sharing a toothbrush, something as simple as a toothbrush, because they do not have the monies to buy individual toothbrushes. There are a lot of people right in this community, this wonderful community in which we live of Huntsville, Madison County, that are struggling. And I know we each can say, well, you know, I've got my challenges, I've got things that I have to do, but if we step back for a minute, we do have the basics. I'm speaking and talking about people who do not even have the basics. You know, we don't have to share a toothbrush. We have, you know, running water and the basics. But there are people, not because they didn't want to do it. There are circumstances in life that are beyond our control sometimes. And so that's when I know we have a moral, religious, community, institutional obligation to reach out and to be helpful and to share what we have. Because when we give and we share with others, we are blessed beyond measure.
And you may not even see the blessing, but it'll come.
It'll come
when it's supposed to. Somebody put on Facebook yesterday, it's just a thought-provoking question. When you get to a red light, why do you always turn your head when you see a homeless person standing there? And I was like, that's a good thought. Why do you turn your head? You don't know what their situation is, and if you help them in just a little bit, you know, it's not your business what they do with it, but, you know, just when you do it to the least of these.
You've done it to me.
Exactly.
That's so you're correct.
Well, in just a little time that we have left, Black Tie Gala is another scholarship opportunity. We definitely make a point to help our students and incoming students here at Alabama A&M. Black Tie Gala, what can we expect, and when is that coming around?
The Black Tie Gala, there's so many things going on that
it's a lot. April, I think it's the 28th. Yes. It's
the 28th of April. Yeah. But this is, again, as you said, a fundraising effort that we have each year that we provide. These are dollars for current use. By current use, it means that these are dollars that are provided to students currently. These are not dollars that go into endowed scholarships. And our students certainly need it as a delightful evening. There will be a performer again. The name doesn't come to me now. But
it's always a secret. I know.
Well, yeah,
MCA,
but
they make it a secret.
we'll have a performer there that should be very well. And then we're also going to have the announcement of our capital campaign.
Okay.
Will be a major announcement related to the capital campaign into the future. So it's going to be a delightful evening, and we invite everyone to come and to be a part of that effort. So again, a lot going on the Hill, and then of course following that we'll have our commencement weekend. Of course, we'll have again the community breakfast, followed by our Founders Day, followed by commencement. So this is a busy time of the year, an exciting time of the year, but a good time of the year.
Yes, it is, and Jazzathon is in the thick of things.
And Jazzathon is in the thick of things, and so we certainly want to do all we can to assist, and hopefully we'll be out requesting some support. Because I can tell you, Ms. Fox, you're probably aware of this. If the president's budget goes forward as recommended,
and we mean President Donald
President
Trump.
Donald Trump, if it goes forward as recommended, it is going to create a void in our radio station.
Right.
Because one of the things that he has zeroed out is public broadcasting, and we receive support from public broadcasting, and so we are hopeful that that will not be passed through Congress. But if it is, it's going to have to be a wake-up call for all of us to find a way to do even more in order that we can still provide the same level and quality of program that we want, deserve, and must have at Alabama A&M.
Most definitely. It's a form of exposure for the university that we must continue to implement and take care of. So we definitely need the support of all of our listeners, faculty, staff, students, and friends and alums, everybody. And hopefully maybe next month we can talk a little more in depth about that and possibly bring in Mr. Jenkins to talk with you as well here on Presidential Community News from the Hill. Well, Dr. Hugine, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For taking
Thank
the time
you.
out to talk with us again. I know you are so busy all around, and we appreciate you stopping through
Thank you
to
for
talk
having
with
me.
us.
Thank you so very much. And take care, and go Bulldogs.
This is 90.9 FM WJAB. Thank you for tuning in to the Presidential Community News from the Hill. Coming your way next, we have an update from NPR News, followed by its award-winning news magazine, All Things Considered, and more Afternoon Expression.